Man, thank you for that song. Fits very well with tonight's message. Turn your Bible to Joshua chapter 6. When you find your place, if you're able, I invite you to stand. Joshua chapter 6. I typically hesitate to do this, but this evening I'm going to read a pretty large portion of this chapter. I hesitate to do this because I don't like reading in front of people, because you're going to read it and see all the places I mess up in it. So you read it in your head and listen to yourself, not me, and we'll come out just fine. Joshua chapter 6, I'm going to start reading. In verse 1 it says, "Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor, and ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up, every man straight before him. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, and said unto them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said unto the people, Pass on, and compass the city, and let him that is armed pass on before the ark of the Lord. And it came to pass, when Joshua had spoken unto the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns passed on before the Lord, and blew with the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. And the armed men went before the priests that blew with the trumpets, and the rewards came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, Ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth, until the day I bid you shout, then shall ye shout. So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about it once, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually, and blew with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the reward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And the 2nd day they compassed the city once, and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time, when the priests blew with the trumpet, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. And the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in her house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed, when ye take the accursed thing, and make the camp of Israel a curse and trouble it. But all the silver and gold, and vessels of brass and iron, are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. We'll stop there and let's have a word of prayer. Lord, I want to pray that we'll use this time tonight, Lord, that we have in your word. I pray that you will you'll speak through me this evening, Lord, and just Lord, as you know, I in my studies and often pray, Lord, help this just to be, as I believe it is, a message from you tonight, Lord, and help it to be what you know we need. Pray that you'll just use this time, Lord, praise in your name. Amen. You can go ahead and be seated. The children of Israel, when this is taking place, have just spent the last 40 years wandering the desert, seemingly aimless. Literally just wandering until they died because of their unbelief when Moses had sent the 12 spies into the land. I mean, they have spent these years wandering around just waiting for this generation to die, and now that group is gone, and Moses has just died himself, and Joshua is now the one leading this group. But this is going to be no easy task for Joshua. Last week I mentioned for Moses that it wasn't easy for what he faced, but this is going to be no easier for Joshua. Moses had to lead people around in the desert, and that's going to be hard. We know how much the people complained against God, and we know how much the people complained against Moses. Anytime things weren't going as they perceived that they should, they got upset at either Moses or God, and often both. So that's hard, no doubt, but Joshua steps in with, I guess I'll just put it this way, with Joshua starts a new era, which presents some major challenges. For starters, it's new, and people don't like new. Even if it's a good new, people don't like anything that's changed, anything that's different. You think about it, the automatic reaction to a change or to something new is you fight against it. You've heard that, the old saying, like a calf at a new gate. I've worked with cattle. We grew up next to a dairy farm, and as a young kid, I got to work on the farm. I told Brother Caleb a little bit about this today, as he was swinging a machete at blackberry bushes in the back. As a kid, that was my summer. We lived next to the dairy farm, and we were given a machete and told to walk fence lines, and we were chopping thistles and tansy all day long. For $5 a day, a big lunch and an ice cream cone. For a 6 or 7 year old kid, that's the perfect job. But working on a dairy farm, we got to do a lot of really neat things. A lot of it, obviously, involved helping with the cattle. So I've seen the whole calf at a new gate thing personally, and it really is true. The gate can look exactly like all of the other 500 gates they've walked through before. But this one is new, so they won't. You almost have to force them through, and pushing an animal that big is not an easy thing. It's new, it's changed. They don't like it. But to be honest, as people, we aren't that much different. We aren't that much different. Something new comes up, and we aren't thrilled for the new adventure. We aren't excited about the new possibilities. No, we look at it and think, this is new. It must be bad, or at least I'm going to treat it as if it's bad until it proves otherwise, even if it seems obviously better. I know you all love my plumbing example, so I'll give a plumbing example. When I first started plumbing, everything was done in copper pipe. And I would talk to the old-timers who complained about copper pipe because, back in my day, everything was galvanized, and that was when real men were. Well, in the stretch that I was plumbing, within a few years, they switched. And PEX pipe was introduced, which was easier to run, and so it saved time and saved expense and had all sorts of advantages. And yet, for years, most contractors wouldn't use it, and most plumbers I knew wouldn't use it because, real plumbers solder everything, because it was new. And as people, we don't like change. We don't like something that's not what we're used to. Here Joshua steps in and immediately is going to lead them in what's going to be a major new stage in their life. And I mean immediately. He's put in charge by God in Joshua chapter 1, verse 1, and is told by God in Joshua chapter 1, verse 2, cross the river and start going. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, get your feet wet leading the people. There's not a whole lot of, we're going to ease you into this. It's okay, Moses is dead, you're in charge, it's time to cross the river and take the promised land. This is a lot of new, a lot of change, and people aren't going to like it. But not only will you have the challenge of a new era, But also in there, you're going to have the challenge of a whole lot of fighting. And again, you think about this, immediately Joshua steps in, and it's right off the bat, okay, fellas, we're going to cross the river into the land that your dads were too scared to go into. We're going to immediately, he's in charge, we're going to go where your dad said he couldn't possibly win those battles. Now, you think about it, most young men think their dad is perfect, that anything dad says must be right. So can you imagine hearing that? Joshua is going to lead us into the land that our dad was too afraid to go into. If my dad couldn't fight that, I sure can't. Joshua's having to face the people with the idea that, well, 40 years ago, God told your dad to do this, but, hate to break it to you, your dad was too chicken, so God punished him and he's dead now. Your turn. That's what Joshua was leading these people to do. These people knew that this still meant facing giants. Giants that their dads, 40 years ago, said made them look like grasshoppers. This group would have known that entering this land means taking those guys on. They knew that there were still fortified cities that their dads had told them about. They knew that there were still the trained soldiers that their dad had told them about. You think about it, when we come back with things, we're remembering things, we typically remember the bad. I'm going to bet Dad forgot to tell about the grapes and all of the milk and honey flowing. The stories we normally tell are the giants and the walled cities and all the troubles we're going to have. These guys are going in knowing that hasn't gone away. So knowing this new era that Joshua is leading us into means a life of constant uphill battle where we're constantly going to be fighting. You try to lead a group that is aware of all that. And I can imagine, Joshua's rallying cry as they cross the river, something like a coach's halftime speech. I know they're bigger, and I know they're stronger, and I know they have tall walled cities, and they're better trained, and have better weapons, but there's no reason we can't whoop these guys. We got this. People aren't going to be excited to follow you into that. People aren't going to be excited to follow you. Have you ever done something that you go into and you know you're going to fail? It's hard to get motivation for those things, and that's what, in a human's mind, in our eyes, that's what Joshua was leading them into. Joshua was taking charge and saying, okay, we're going to cross this river into a land where by 10 out of 12 accounts, we're going to get whooped. Where we read to start the message tonight, they've crossed over, and they're at this point getting ready to fight Jericho, and Joshua sends the spies, and again, by human accounts, they don't stand a chance, and yet, in here tonight, we have the benefit of, we know how it ended, we know the story that they won. How? How did a group of runaway slaves who had come out of 40 years of wandering in the desert come into an unknown land and defeated a walled city with trained soldiers? How did that happen? How did Joshua convince the people to follow him into this? And I think I'm going to simplify, and then we'll get into this a little bit more. But simple answer is that God was with Joshua. Right at the very beginning of where we started reading, I'm not going to have us read through there again, but right at the beginning, he tells Joshua, verse 2, I have given into thine hand Jericho. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's a past tense before they ever fought the battle. Because God was with Joshua. Joshua wasn't able to lead the people because Joshua was a great motivational speaker. Now, there are some people who can convince people to do just about anything for them by the way they talk. That's not what happened here. It wasn't by Joshua's military brilliance. It wasn't by their superior training, because they didn't have that. The only reason that Joshua could lead them to this victory was because God was with him. Tonight, I simply titled the message this, and then again we'll get into it and explain it here. God in the impossible battles. Because by all accounts, that's what this was. Remember, 40 years ago, Moses sent 12 of their dads in there, and 10 of the 12 came back saying, we can't beat that place. It's impossible. They're giants. We're grasshoppers in our sight. They're going to squish us. It's what they're going in this with. God in the impossible battles, because we all go through battles in life that seem that way, don't we? That seem like our Jericho to be, in our mind, impossible for us to win. That in our mind, our enemy is bigger and is better trained and is more prepared, and we look at him and we say, I am going to get slaughtered. But remember, God is with us. Tonight I have three ways that I want us to see God in the impossible battle, using the example of the battle of Jericho. The first thing I want us to see is God in the protection. Turn back with me to Joshua chapter 2 real quick. Joshua chapter 2, I'm going to start reading, I'm going to read verses 1 through 6. It says, And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the country of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thy house, for they be come to search out all the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting a gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. Now, think about this. You've just come into this land. You are preparing to attack the city, but first you're going to spy out the city, and the king hears of the spies, sounds like pretty quickly, and he hears that they're there, and he sends out to search for them, and Rahab is put in a tough spot. She has to choose, do I stay loyal to my people? Presumably, this is her king who is looking for the spies. We know she lived in the city, so the spies who are coming to plan an attack has a major effect on her. We know that her family is in the city because later she brings them into her house to be saved from the attack. Taking in these spies potentially means betraying your family, betraying her country, betraying her city. She could have easily sent the spies out of her house. I want no part of this either way. Just leave. I don't want to get involved. She could have easily turned the spies in. When you think about it, she put them on the roof. There's no escape. She could have very easily told the men looking for the spies, yeah, they're on the roof. No way to get out. When the king sent the men there, it would not have been hard for her to just rat them out. Yep, they're on the roof. Go get them. She chose. She had to choose, do I stay loyal to my people, or do I help these men, these strangers? And she helps them, not yet knowing that they would spare her life when they attacked. When she put them on the roof, it's before she talks to them about saving her and her family. That wasn't told her until after she had turned the soldiers away. She protected them not because she was a moral person and it seemed right. She didn't protect them because it was, they asked her to and anything like that. Nowhere in the Bible does it say they rushed in yelling, there are men after us, please hide us. That wasn't her reason. She didn't protect them because she hated her family or her city or her king. And I know that because the Bible very, very clearly tells us why she provided them protection. Look at chapter 2, verse 9 with me. It says, And she said unto them, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when ye came out of Egypt, and what ye did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt, neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. She protected them because of their God. Think about this. This worldly woman realized something that these men's fathers hadn't figured out 40 years previously. She realized something that honestly the majority of Christians haven't figured out, and that is when God promises something, it's done. It's done. They hadn't even had their first battle in the promised land, and notice what she said. Not that I've heard of you and you're going to try to take over the land. Not that I've heard of you and I've heard of your God and your God will give you the land and in time it'll be yours. She said, giving you the land. Just like when God told Joshua in chapter 6, it was past tense. It's already done. She had to figure out this thing wasn't up for debate. It didn't matter what the armies of their city did. It didn't matter how prepared they were and how good their walls were and how good their soldiers were. God's already won this thing. All that mattered was that their God said he's going to win it, so he has. And the same is true for us. Now, we want victory over sin. And it's going to sound weird. Follow me to the end here. God isn't going to give you that victory because he already has. It's already happened. When he died on the cross, he died for that sin that we find that impossible battle. That battle's already been won.
Good.
And yet we still fight battles that have already been won instead of realizing, oh, God's already won this. This is past tense. If we could really grasp a hold of this idea, it would save us in our lives so many pointless battles. I did some research for this message. Civil War, obviously communication in the Civil War wasn't what it is now. And here's what I found. There were at least, and possibly more, at least 6 battles that were fought in the Civil War after the Civil War was over. At least 6 that General Lee had already surrendered. The war was over. But word hadn't made it to these men yet. The war was past tense. But they didn't realize it. The 6, Battle of Morrisville Station, Battle of West Point, Battle of Columbus, Battle of Anderson, Battle of Palomino Ranch, and the Shenandoah Raids. And I attempted to look it up, and I couldn't find a clear answer. I found all sorts of varying numbers, so I decided rather than picking which one looked right, I'm not even going to try to give a number, but how many men died or were injured in those battles? But regardless of if it was a few or a lot, there were in each of them men injured and killed for no reason. Because the war was over. It had already been won. It was, again, past tense. And yet they were still fighting simply because they didn't know. They didn't know. How many injuries must we sustain because we don't know what Rahab knew? How many battles are we going to fight because we don't grasp the war's already won? Which could be a message in itself. I'm not going to go into all that. But because of God, these spies were protected against her own nation. We can clearly see God in their protection. We can clearly see God in the plan. We read it. I'm not going to have us read it again. Joshua chapter 6, verse 2 through 5. He lays it out for Joshua. That plan of we are going to walk around the city and blow trumpets. Nobody makes a sound until the last day. We're going to walk around the city, blow trumpets, and when I give the signal, you're going to yell. militarily. That doesn't work. I mean, that doesn't work. I've already mentioned some of this, but let's examine that. A fortified city. Jericho is designed to withstand an attack. That's how they built it. So you're automatically starting off with a huge disadvantage. Having walls means it's that getting in is harder, so you're going to have to fight your way in before you can actually fight the people. But walls also means your enemy automatically has the high ground. Super oversimplified. It's a lot easier to chuck a rock down than it is to chuck a rock up. Huge disadvantage. And if that wasn't enough, Jericho has trained soldiers. And I don't know, but I have to think potentially giants. The Bible doesn't tell when the spies came back where these giants were they saw, but they may have been here. At the very least, you're talking about an army that is trained not just to fight, but trained to protect those walls. And you're going to attack it with what is essentially the nomadic sons of a bunch of runaway slaves. There is nothing militarily about that shows any sort of advantage for Joshua and the people. For that matter, if we leave God out of the equation, there is nothing about that even shows the chance of anyone surviving this. And God's plan in this is not, I want you to run in and attack. I want you to line the people up, blow the trumpets, and yell. You imagine when God told Joshua this. I can picture the conversation between God and Joshua. God telling Joshua, all right, I want you to line the people up. And Joshua, okay, then we attack. God, no. Then the priests blow their trumpets. Okay, then we attack? No, then you're going to tell the people to yell, and that's it. And Joshua just standing there looking confused. That's it? At what point in there do we attack? I mean, this plan, even to anyone, would seem like a suicide mission. You're facing what seems like an impossible battle already, and then this is how God wants me to handle it? It wouldn't have made any sense, and I can see someone hearing that and thinking, why did God lead us out here to have us slaughtered in our first battle? Because his plan doesn't make any sense at all, but God was in the plan. It was his plan. And how often is that true for us? That God's plan to us just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The plan that God gave Joshua wouldn't have made sense. I was talking to someone this last week about something that was going on in their life, and the comment was made to me, I know God has a reason, I just wish I could know what it was. Just wish I could know what that was. God has a plan, and often we look at that plan and we don't see why he's doing what he's doing, why he's bringing us through what we're facing, because it doesn't make sense to us. We don't see how it'll work. But it's still his plan. And we still need to submit to it. Joshua could have heard this plan and told God, God, I know this is what your plan is, but I don't think that's going to work. I'll come up with my own. I'll figure out my own way on how we can try to defeat the city, and we'll try and find a weakness we can exploit, and we'll try and come up with our own way. And we hear that, knowing what the end of the story is, and we think, well, Joshua would have been dumb to do that. Of course he should trust God, except that's what we do. Well, God, I know what your plan is, but I don't see how that makes sense, so I'm going to do this instead. And because of it, we end up taking a defeat in a war that's already been won. And we really just need to be trusting his plan. We can see God in the protection. We can see God in the plan. The last thing I want to see tonight is God in the product. Look at chapter 6, verse 20 with me. I know we read it at the beginning, but one more time, verse 20 says, So the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet And the people shouted with a great shout that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. It worked. The impossible battle with what seemed like the impossible plan, the overwhelming odds against them, the walled city, the trained soldiers, this again, what seemed like a ridiculous plan, and it worked. The walls fell. These walls that are made, fortified to protect the city, fell from a bunch of guys yelling. No, they fell from a bunch of people obeying God. Because they followed His way.
Yes.
And more than just fall down, they didn't just topple over. And I firmly believe this, that they turned to nothing. The Bible doesn't tell us they climbed rubble up into the city. It says they went straight before them. The wall that was no more. It worked. The wall fell. Israelites entered, charged into this no longer walled city. The Bible says they slew them with the sword, which couldn't have been too hard. I can only imagine that everyone in the city was in a state of shock. No one expected this to work. I mean, this weird group of people outside the wall walking around blowing trumpets and yelling. Okay? A bunch of crazies walking around. When we get tired of, we're going to sit up on the wall and laugh at them for a while. When we get tired of it, we'll go whoop them. All of a sudden, they're in shock. What just happened? What just happened? In the blink of an eye, you went from I'm inside the safety of my walled city with the army perched on the wall ready to protect me to the enemy rushing in and killing me. It worked in a way that only God could do. The impossible battle was won because God was with them.
Amen.
The impossible battle was won because of God. And here's the idea I want to get across this evening, and I'll conclude with this. At times, we all face impossible battles, or so they seem. Whether that is a battle with sin, or whether that is a battle with something completely different, we all face what seem to us like impossible battles. Things we look at, and it's like the children of Israel looking at Jericho, the walled cities and the trained soldiers, and we see the obstacles. But God is there. God is there. He'll protect us. He has a plan, and if we'll follow His plan, He will produce. The battle's already won if we'll just rely on Him. The battle's already won if we'll just rely on Him. I absolutely, I'm going to read it one more time. I love it that God is giving Joshua instructions, and He tells him, I have given into thine hand Jericho. It's already done. The battle's already won if we just trust His way. In the impossible battles that we face, know God is there. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you will help us, Lord. I know we all face different battles in our life, Lord, but battles to us that seem, as Jericho, impossible. Battles to us that we look at and we see, I don't know any way I can get through this. Lord, help us to realize, as you told Joshua, as Rahab realized, that the battle's already been won. That God's already given victory. We face these impossible battles, and we fight in these impossible battles, Lord, rather than just trusting you. Lord, help us to see that in those impossible battles that you are there. Or that you're there to protect, and you're there with the plan that will bring us through, Lord. And when we follow you, you're there with the end result. You're there to get us through, Lord. I pray that you'll help us to learn to look for you, and to trust you in the impossible battles of life. It's in your name. Amen. So I'll stand with heads bowed and eyes closed this evening. The invitation is, I think I'm going to keep this really, really simple here. Because I think every one of us at one time or another, whether it's a battle of sin, whether it's a battle of something completely different, we face things that to us seem impossible. To us seem like there's no way I can defeat this. Well, there's a lot of comfort in the fact that I don't have to. God already has. I just need to trust His plan, follow His way, know that He's there, and He'll bring me through. To begin to play the piano this evening, let's learn to look to God in the impossible battle.